The murder of a school teacher possibly linked to a love triangle, several people hurt in an explosion at Bahamas Power and Light headquarters, and a child injured in a triple shooting. We've got these stories and others. I'm your host, Nico Scavella, and this is the Tribune's Top 5. Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andre Rollins this week said Long Island MP Loretta Butler Turner could face an independent challenge if voters on Long Island urge him to do so. His threat came hours before the Free National Movement announced it had ratified Mrs. Butler Turner as its standard bearer for the constituency in the next general election. Speaking to Mrs. Butler Turner's representation in her constituency, Dr. Rollins claimed that voters in Long Island are at their wits' end with the MP. He also insisted that if F&M leader Dr. Hubert Minnis stays true to his words and allows the voters in Long Island to have their say, they would opt for new representation. In February, the Tribune reported that Dr. Rollins was seen on the island making rounds in an attempt to garner the support of the party. Dr. Rollins has previously said he would not seek a nomination from the F&M after Dr. Minnis retained his leadership post at the party's convention in July. Earlier this week, he changed his tune, however, saying on Ed Fields Live that he would consider a nomination from the party if offered one by Dr. Minnis. Meanwhile, the F&M announced the ratification of 4 more candidates ahead of the 2017 general election, with Dr. Minnis hailing the lot as integral cogs in the party's better governance machinery. In addition to Mrs. Butler Turner, the party ratified former Deputy Commissioner of Police Marvin Daines for the Mount Moriah constituency, former Democratic National Alliance Chairman Mark Humes for the Fort Charlotte constituency, and local entrepreneur Wal Saunders for the Michael constituency. Dr. Minnis also said the F&M intends to release segments of its detailed national plan in the coming weeks, promising that once issued, Bahamians would see that not only is this F&M the better party, but best for the country. One person is in hospital and several others received medical attention after an explosion at Bahamas Power and Light's Blue Hills plant, officials said this week. According to Bahamas Electrical Workers Union President Paul Maynard, 8 employees were treated in hospital this week after the explosion. Mr. Maynard told the Tribune that one man, a supervisor, is in critical condition in the intensive care unit, 2 other employees were said to be under observation, and 5 other men were treated and released on Wednesday afternoon. Mr. Maynard remained tight-lipped on what caused the explosion and the extent of the damage at the facility, but said at the time the fire would not affect power supply in New Providence. He also said that the accident happened while the men were in the process of installing the new rental generators. However, a statement released by BPL this week said only 1 employee remained in hospital after the incident. BPL also said a brief system disturbance on Wednesday afternoon resulted in a temporary loss of supply to a very small number of customers. BPL said the incident was isolated and they do not expect any further effect on operations. Last week, BPL's corporate communications manager Arnett Ingram admitted that the site for the rental generators had not been prepared prior to the arrival of the units. She said the company has been temporarily patching its troubled equipment, but until its rental generators are installed, there is no way to tell when frequent power outages will end. However, Mrs. Ingram said the generators should be up and running by this weekend. 2 men were killed and a child was shot after 3 gunmen ambushed a group of people standing outside a home on Fairdale Street earlier this week. Chief Superintendent Clayton Fernander, officer in charge of the Central Detective Unit, said the incident happened shortly before 7 p.m. on Tuesday. He said police were continuing to probe the case to determine a motive for the shooting. He said a group of men were standing on Fairdale Street near Wolf Road when 3 individuals emerged from nearby bushes all armed with handguns and fired a number of shots into the crowd. As a result, he said 2 adult males were shot to the body along with a child who was said to be between 8 and 10 years old. One of the adult males died on the scene. The child and the second adult were subsequently taken to the hospital by private vehicle. A statement released later by police revealed the second man, who was in critical condition, had also died. The child, meanwhile, was said to be in stable condition. About a day later, one of the victim's employers described his deceased worker's death as a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Steve Wallace, owner of Block World, where 35-year-old Mark Davis was employed, said the victim, an employee of the block building business for the last 6 years, had just got off from work and was waiting for a ride home. According to Mr. Wallace, the victim had been standing in a group with other young men when a man whose face was covered with a t-shirt approached the group and opened fire. The victim and another man ran and sought shelter, Mr. Wallace said. When the gunfire ceased, he said both men realized they had been shot. When asked about this, Chief Superintendent Fernando said police were still unsure of the circumstances. He could not say who was the intended target of the shooting. However, Chief Superintendent Fernando said a man was assisting police with their investigations. Former employees of Bahar Mar will start receiving checks from the claims committee established to administer payouts on September 27th, according to a notice published this week. The checks are expected to cover unpaid salaries, accrued vacation pay, severance pay, and payments in lieu of notice. A notice published in the Nassau Guardian said former workers could collect checks at the Crystal Palace Training Hotel casino entrance from September 27th to the 29th. Differing dates and locations were published in the Tribune this week, but Claims Committee Chairman James Smith clarified that they were incorrect as they reflected the committee's earlier but subsequently altered decision. Previously, Mr. Smith said that while the money to pay former employees and Bahar Mar creditors has not been deposited as yet, it is on its way. The money will come from the Export-Import Bank of China. According to the notice in the Nassau Guardian, the Claims Committee will issue checks to employees through an alphabetically ordered system so that those with last names beginning with the letters A through F will collect payments on September 27th. Those with last names beginning with the letters G through O will collect their checks on September 28th, and those with last names beginning with the letters P through Z will collect their checks on September 29th. The committee will inform former Bahar Mar employees of the amounts owed to them by contacting them on the last email address Bahar Mar has for them on record. In order to receive their payments, former employees will be required to assign their claims, according to the newspaper notice. Mr. Smith acknowledged that the method of emailing is likely to be inadequate for reaching every former employee of Bahar Mar. Nonetheless, the newspaper notice said persons who do not receive an email from the committee should come in person on the appropriate check collection day to be provided with their notices. At that time, persons will be required to assign their claims and provide relevant identification as outlined in order to collect their checks. 2 men were killed and a child was shot after 3 gunmen ambushed a group of people standing outside a home off Cairdale Street earlier this week. Police sources have told the Tribune that investigators are probing this as a possible motive for the death of 35-year-old Marisha Bowen. While police have confirmed that a man is assisting police in connection with this murder, the Tribune was told that a woman is also being questioned over the incident. The man helping police is a native of Africa, this newspaper was told. Assistant Commissioner of Police Leon Bethel said police were following a number of leads and had spoken to many people as they try to piece together evidence to bring the case to a close. Police said the victim was found shortly after 8 a.m. last Friday in her apartment by other tenants of a complex on Red Sea Road off Sumner Street, suffering from a single wound to the body. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Sources described the wound as a slit to the victim's throat. Neighbors were said to have heard screaming from her apartment, which is believed to have led to the discovery of her body, sources said. As news spread of her death, condolences and feelings of disbelief poured in on the victim's Facebook page. Last Friday, the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology, in a statement released just hours after the discovery by police, said school was dismissed early and urged parents to immediately collect students from the school due to the untimely death of a teacher. She had taught at C.W. Saunders School from 2014. Want to get in on the discussion? Well, here's how you can. Just log on to our website, www.tribune242.com. Like us on Facebook, Tribune News Network. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tribune242, or send us a tweet at Tribune242.